And so to our first contributor. If we can bring up Steve, that would be brilliant. I'm just going to wait for him to appear. And while he does that, and it might be a case, Steve or Fiona, to, there's Steve, great. And we need to unmute you. Steve, welcome, how are you?
Good morning, Phil. Very well, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So, Steve Frampton is the Climate Commissioner for the Association of Colleges. But not only that, let's just go backwards in time briefly, if we may, Steve. You were a college principal. Tell us a bit about your background before your current posting, as it were.
Yeah, so I was a college principal on the sunny south coast in Portsmouth, Phil, and what a privilege that was. And we were able to do some pretty amazing things with some wonderful staff and students. Then when I retired 3 years ago, I was elected by my peers, my fellow principals of the country, to be the AOC president for 2 years. And then from that, I've gone back to my roots. I was an environmental activist on the Dorset coast when I was 18, and I was an A-level chief examiner, and I've come full circle, and I'm working on this wonderful green commitment, as we call it, agenda again.
So before we talk about carbon literacy, let's talk about climate change and colleges. So the whole FE sector is, for my money, woefully overlooked in terms of its potential and significance within the climate change agenda. Where do you think what is the role for the further education sector in the green revolution, the green recovery, net zero, etc., that we need to see here?
Yeah, it's we certainly have been woefully overlooked and still are by Treasury, Phil. It's nice of you to recognise that at the moment. Comprehensive spending review wasn't quite all we wanted, but I think the reason that we're interested, Phil, and that's the 2.4 million young people and adults in our sector and all the staff and governors, is that we start with a sector that likes to respond, obviously, to employer needs, community needs, but particularly needs of our students. And from those amazing 3 surveys from NUS SOS in our own country, Zurich in Europe, and Chegg in the States, we know that 74% of those young people say it's the most important and burning issue for them. And we want to be able to respond to that. I mean, that was a survey done of nearly 2 million people aged 7 to 17. So our current learners and also our future learners. And colleges want to be able to respond to that agenda. And I think we're concerned that, of course, that a lot of them are suffering from eco-anxiety because they believe we're not doing enough. Let's hope the next 2 weeks shows them that we are doing a bit more. I do have real concerns, though, after yesterday. It might not be enough. And we need to listen to those young people's voices loud and clear. Because for me, the challenge is around holistic action, collaborative action, co-constructed action at scale and pace.
I think we could dig into that a bit, Steve. Would you like to unpick some of those headings for me?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've realised working on the 2 major documents that FE needed to do in the United Kingdom is that there's very little point doing it to young people, because actually they're more passionate about it, to be frank, than a lot of people in the sector, or were. Let's give the principals their credit. Last week we launched the Green Commitment document. We asked the sector if they would commit to that, and within 4 days, 200 colleges signed up to the letter to the Prime Minister. So I think colleges are very, very committed. But what we've learned on our journey, and we've learned a lot, I have to say, from colleagues north of the border in Scotland and our HE sector colleagues, one, we needed a document to help people on their journey, a roadmap, if you like. So that was the first thing that we did, create a roadmap. And then this year we've topped it up with the Green Commitment document, which clearly sets out and articulates what we can do with the investment that we've got. But I think we've learned 2 things, Phil, on our journey, really. The first is, let's co-construct it. Let's work with particularly our students, but also our partners like CLP, NUS, SOS, ETF, a lot of the other agencies that are working really hard on this agenda. And the second thing is, let's make it collaborative, because there's no winners and losers in this agenda, we feel. We either all lose or we all win. And that's why we were so excited to work with you on this project.
Right. I remember when the issues of the green skills logjam first came up, working in Greater Manchester with the combined authority and their skills. They had a fledgling skills subcommittee, and talking to some pioneering colleges who were getting into sustainable construction training. And it just felt like they were being hobbled because there was no special status for this training. It was about getting bums on seats, the students to fill the rooms, as it were. Otherwise, it couldn't fly for obvious reasons. But they were waiting. The people I was talking to were waiting for employers to give the green light. No, we want these folk in our workforce, and yet they were saying they're not there. So it sounded like a horrendous catch-22 that was leaving us in the skills, in the vocational skills side of stuff, as leaving us shanghaied, no, hogtied even, to that we couldn't get past this logjam of employers wanting the skills, not seeking to commit to employ enough people to encourage the students to take up the training, if you follow me. Has that changed at all, or are we still in this mire?
It's changed, but we're not completely there yet. I mean, we need very clear direction from government on this. There's a lot of rhetoric, a lot of sound bites, particularly from certain key people on this agenda. But what there isn't is the clear strategic plan behind it. So what we've done is we've created a green commitment to show where the college sector is and what we're willing to do, working with our partners, particularly our employers, SMEs in particular, as you'll know, always the most difficult group to get on board, and yet they're very keen. But there is this lull. The other thing is there's a massive gap for young people in terms of the Green Careers Service advice that's available. I mean, how are we going to be able to present and articulate to them these are the sorts of areas that you should go into if we don't? There's some magnificent work being done by EAUC north of the border on a sort of careers document, but this needs to become mainstream. And the NUSSOS quite rightly calling for this as one of the main outcomes from the new DFE Climate Sustainability Unit, which are doing fantastic work. So I think we need a good green career service, and it certainly does exist in other places. It needs that partnership. The FE sector very keen to work with businesses and the SMEs particularly on this, because how are we going to get all of the changes from gas boilers over to, and in the construction area that you rightly identified, Phil. So we would welcome further links with industry, businesses, and we're working very hard on that, and particularly a local level, I have to say. But that's probably the most important level to do this. And I think the sector's also saying, come to us, because we can offer you a collaborative vision for where we could go forward on it. It's not the old days of college versus college competition, because no one college can provide all of the green skills jobs and training, quite obviously. So we've seen some exciting developments in Yorkshire and Sussex around how regionally colleges are working out how they can best support industry and employers.
Yeah, I know less about the Yorkshire reference there, but the Sussex collaboration between 8 colleges there who've secured government money on a green skills pioneer thing is great. They're really they're doing amazing stuff across the curriculum, with a big chunk of carbon literacy in the mix being headed up.
Yeah, and it was carbon literacy that started the whole journey, Phil. And I think this is the wonderful thing. I think what we had was a group of colleges in Brighton who were very keen to pilot an FE version that we developed in lockdown. About 1,000 students did it, wonderfully successful, with a retention rate of 998 out of 1,000, which is pretty good by anyone's thinking, I think. And we learned a lot from doing it, the online route and the talk route. And now, of course, it's being rolled out at over 30 colleges, and hopefully 30,000 students will complete this year.
Which is
But I think what was great was that one college said we were going to do it, and then the 4 Brighton colleges said they'd like to join in and do it as a pilot collectively, which led then, as you said, to all the Sussex colleges wanting to work together on this, but then had the broader ambition of how do we deliver green skills across the partnership as well.
So this brings me to my next point. People can sometimes, particularly in education, look at this as something that they perceive as green skills, about how to fit PV panels, air source heat pumps, retrofit homes, etc., etc. My suggestion here, Steve, is that we've got to push back on that a bit, and that actually all jobs have to be green jobs. It's not about green sectors. We've got to green the workplace, and FE is going to be crucial to that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think Bill Gates said that in his new book, didn't he?
Did he? Oh, good. He's obviously here listening to me then. That's
he is, Phil, as many of us who would be very wise to do, not least our Prime Minister as well. And but quite rightly, I think what he identified was that he thought by 2030, 30% of jobs would be new. They would all be green. They'll have to be. All companies are going to have to be sustainable if they're going to survive. And by 2050, he advocated that all jobs would be green jobs. And I think we've seen that in the local government association reports that go back to 2018. They were thinking it'd be about 500,000, and they've revised that now to 1.86 million, I think it is, by 2030. And various other reports that the House of Commons Select Committees have looked at as well. They're estimating, I think, 2.2 million now by 2030. But you're right. And this is where I think carbon literacy comes in, because it enables all businesses to understand that they are going to need to be able to offer green pathways and green skills, because that will be the future.
So we have our green jobs, the new green stuff, so to speak, in one part. Then we've got this great breadth of transitioning sectors as well. Is FE able to respond to green the curriculum in a way that is sufficiently substantial and fast to respond to the sorts of statements that are going to come out of Glasgow?
Yeah, I think in a number of ways, really. I mean, we tried very hard to amend the Education Act, particularly I'd like to credit Lord Jim Knight for that recently, but that wasn't to be. But I think it raised the stakes and raised awareness again for the wonderful work that Jamie and NUS and SOS have led on around Teach the Future, because it's what young people want, and it's actually what employers want as well. They want a skilled and a trained labour force that understands this agenda, and all citizens will want it really as well. So I think this is where CLP comes in. It's a very quick win for everybody about getting it into the curriculum, because it can be embedded through the tutorial program. We've seen it embedded in programs from literally in BASVIC, it was done by critical thinking. In other colleges, it's been done by the catering, it's been done by hospitality, it's been done by fashion students, jewelry students, it's been done in A-level biology, chemistry, physics. I can't think of a discipline area where it hasn't been. But of course, what we're going to need is the rest of the qualifications and exam system to catch up. And it needs to be embedded in every pathway at every level and every course for every student in this country. And that needs to filter down then from FE into secondary and into primary.
So we need to take a quick break and respond to our first comment of the broadcast. Thank you, Susan, who was just saying, please, let's pull back on the acronyms. So easy a trap to pull into. So let's yes, obviously FE is further education. I hope that's clear. BASVIC needs unwrapping, because it's now, I'm going to get this right. Can I have a go, Stephen? See how wrong I get
please
this.
do.
Brighton
Phil.
and Hove. It's not Albion, is it? No. Brighton and Hove sixth form. Anyhow, it's the Brighton and Hove sixth form who've been at the heart of that.
It is. It's the Brighton and Hove sixth form college, and our wonderful friends there, Will and Sandra as the chair of governors, and all the students.
Yeah, CLP is us, Carbon Literacy Project. We'll be on acronym watch there, so apologies for any acronym fog that has emerged so far. Yeah, but so true. We've been keeping so you've answered my next question actually there, Steve, was when I talk to people who are in the education field, they go, oh, we don't want to touch the course because it's sort of set in stone and it'll take 4 years for the accrediting agency or the degree hander out to fix. You're saying there's sufficient flexibility to embed carbon literacy into most courses.
Yeah, most definitely. Sorry, the sun's moved, and I'm trying to get around the shadow issue. But let's see what we can do.
Don't worry.
I think it's so flexible, and that's the joy of it. Every college is doing it in a different way. The exam system will change. It's got to, but I think there's a willingness for it to change as well. I'm talking to Pearson's at the moment, really, and they're looking at literally looking at standalone qualifications from large hour to short courses, and also how they're going to embed it in every one of their vocational and academic pathways. So I think there's excitement there. I think that the professional associations and trade unions have done a great job. They're asking all of our sector staff to pledge to do what they can in the interim to embed sustainability in all of their qualifications. And that's a pledge that unions will make as a major feature of what they do it for COP. And I think many staff will want to do that. Many staff will want the opportunity to embed CLP, even if it's transitional, Phil, until the qualification system catches up.
Yep. Yep.
But the lovely thing about it for me is I think it will be the bedrock of all that we do going forward. And it is a wonderful opportunity, not only for FE, but for FE students when they've done the course to go and work in their local ecosystem, their primaries and their secondary schools, and see how they can help with their training and knowledge, work with the primaries and secondaries. And I stress work with, because let's not assume that those secondary and particularly primary
just losing you a bit there, Steve.
Pretty good grasp of this agenda. Are we still okay?
We've just come back. But we got the drift there, Steve. We're going to have to wrap up in a minute. But one final point, we're talking about the vocational side of things, and you've already intimated that there's a far bigger picture here. What is the role of the colleges in empowering your students as advocates and champions for a low carbon future?
Massive. And I mean, there's what do we see? We've been pushing on an open door with this. Every conversation we've had with the sector, and I'm probably now talked to over 100 college boards, governing bodies, senior leadership teams. We've been welcomed with sheer joy, Phil, because this is a solution to a problem. They know it's what their young people want. They know it's what employers want. They know it's what local authorities want. They know they need to be working collaboratively and co-constructively on it. So it's a massive solution to a significant problem. And I wouldn't be surprised if over the next 2 years, whether or not we see a trebling, if not quadrupling, in the number of colleges and young people who in the FE sector, and adults as well, who are doing it. And they love it as well. That's the other thing is, I mean, the assessment is the most meaningful assessment of any qualification I think anyone's ever devised. Because if you've got to write a personal action plan or a collaborative action plan, that's also going to give you some really real long-term benefits and enable it to be sustained within the sustainability agenda.
Yeah, and for those of you new to carbon literacy, part of the joy of this is no essays. It really is snappy and meaningful in terms of that summing up. Steve, look, as ever, a real pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so much from us all for your unstinting support and dynamism in all of this. Really good to have you on as our first panelist today.
So that will now commence the last speaker session of the day. Myself and Anna will be, myself, Higher Education Coordinator with the Carbon Literacy Project, and Anna, Higher Education Placement Student, will be in the next Zoom session until 5:15, in case anybody wants to come and have an informal chat or ask us any questions. If not, then thank you for joining us, whether you're on Zoom or YouTube. It's been a fantastic day. Really pleased you've managed to come along to some of these sessions, and we'll see you at the next one. As always, any questions, please just email education@carbonliteracy.com. Thank you.